Welcome everybody to episode 190 of the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. We are your host, Adam, Amy, and Russell Gibson, and we're not going to start off on a positive note at all. We're going to start on a negative note. Victor Wembanyama is out for the season.
Bit of a Debbie Downer, really, isn't it, to start off the show?
Is that more shocking than Luka going to the Lakers?
No, I think Luka going to the Lakers is more shocking because, a professional athlete getting a injury, that's not that shocking.
I think the type of injury is the one that's shocking me and has me unnerved.
Okay. What makes you feel unnerved by that?
I don't think it's an easy stay at home, it'll get better kind of fix. That's my concern. This could plague him for his whole career.
Yeah.
It's one of those, I don't know, not like a silent assassin, but it's not a broken leg that's blatantly obvious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that'll just heal itself.
Yeah.
When is this problem going to pop its little head up again? Yeah, I get that 100% too.
Yeah, and look, we've been down the, and I'm not comparing, this is chalk and cheese, but we've been down the Zion path where we've had this great prospect, dominant, and then just injured, and how that's impacted things. And now we've had a season and a bit of Wemby. Like, the guy was just an all-star, and I don't like this. I don't. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, so maybe we should take 2 steps back and just summarize
what's actually happened to him.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we do sometimes get ahead of ourselves sometimes, but that's okay. This is how we roll.
We can catch everybody up. It's fine.
Alrighty, so he's got a blood clot in his shoulder.
Yep.
And so there's different names for blood clots, but one of the names you can use and has been used for this is deep vein thrombosis. So that's probably something that people might be familiar with if you're flying on a plane. That's one of the risks that you can get from that. Yeah. I was talking to a couple of people about this, asking them, what's the cause of this? Because in my head, this is not the first time we've seen it for an NBA athlete. So there's been a couple. There's been Chris Bosh.
That's the concerning bit for me.
There's been Brandon Ingram, and there's been one of the Thompson twins, which is pretty sure it was Azure that had it.
Yeah.
And so it can really go 2 ways. You get treatment for it, and then everything's good. Or in the instance with Chris Bosh, he actually needed to be on blood thinners long term, and then the problem that he had, and that what really slowed down his career, was that he couldn't fly anymore because that was just increasing his risk of having it reoccur.
That's where my concerns lie, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And this is the thing, isn't it? So it's kind of like the fork in the road. So he either he gets treatment for it, and then they sort him out, and then he comes back just like Ingram's done. There's been no recurring issues for him, and it can be a freak thing. It can just be like a one-off thing, or it is the Chris Bosh thing where they're on blood thinners for the rest of their lives. They can't fly. And then the other thing I'd probably worry about too is like they're playing this high octane, high impact sport. So what would the impact on your body be of being on blood thinners, for the rest of your life? So that's probably where I'm sitting with this at the moment. So it really is, a wait and see situation. And if you're sort of looking even, bigger picture again, it's a real time of transition for the Spurs at the moment, because Coach Pop has just said that he's going to be stepping away from the Spurs also, and he won't be returning this season. So it really is like a changing of the guard for the Spurs.
There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's sad news, one, in the fact that you've seen what the Spurs have been doing, and then through the trade period, they kind of pushed their chips into the middle by acquiring Fox, because that was a real we're ready move.
Yeah.
And then to have this happen, I think, is bitterly disappointing. I mean, the conspiracy theory is they're just trying to really mega tank to get themselves back into the Cooper flag sweepstakes. But
yeah, 100%. So let's take that sort of cup half full view, and I've got something else to support that in 2 seconds, but let's dive into that conspiracy theory about them getting ping pong balls. They've done it before with David Robinson, where they held him out even though he was healthy to come back.
Yeah.
And that got them Tim Duncan.
Yep.
And so I would definitely not put it past the Spurs to do it to Wemby so they can get Cooper Flag.
Well, you
And
look at
that
their record
lineup,
at the moment, right? There's 30 something games left in their season, and they're
yeah.
below 500.
Yeah. I feel like to me the Spurs are in the worst possible place where they're not good enough to be a genuine finals team or a genuine playoffs team, but they're
Yep.
definitely not good enough to get sorry,
They're
that's
not
not the
bad
right
enough
wording.
to get
They're
the
not bad
yeah.
enough to get the number one pick in the draft. However, the way that they've flattened out all the draft odds now, you don't have to be the worst team in the league to get the
Just one
most
of
amount
them.
of ping pong balls. You said be like, top three worst teams. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of good. So this is coming from the current head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Now, I think we should probably introduce this gentleman too. This is Mitch Johnson. The Spurs remain optimistic Wembanyama will make a full recovery by the beginning of the 25-26 season. Said the team's medical staff have said that the Frenchman's long-term health won't be affected by his setback. The medical experts and the people that are smarter than everybody in the room have said and confirmed that he'll be done this year, and there is no concern for Victor's long-term health personally or anything related to his basketball activities. So I think a statement like that it's very strong, isn't it? I feel like
It's
that,
it's a very strong statement.
yeah, that to me puts a lot of things to bed in terms of they've consulted all the right people. This is
Yeah.
not just something that's coming, internally. And this is something also too that they can move on from and start planning for, the right pieces. And so, and again, if we're going back full circle, so, zoom out a little bit, this is where the Kawhi Leonard relationship went bad with the Spurs because he was getting internal doctors to assess him and look at him.
Yeah.
And allegedly they asked him to come back before he was right to. And that's sort of what has created some of his long-term injuries things. Google the Kawhi Leonard
Yeah, yeah.
San Antonio Spurs riff. And a lot of that was to do with their inside and him not being able to use outside doctors. So actually for me, I think that's a really interesting one where they're like, we're not going to use inside doctors for this. We're going to use the smartest people we can get our hands on and then, get this taken care of properly. So
It's
yeah.
Yeah, I'm very curious about injuries like this, and I called it. We'll call it an injury, but any medical condition like this, it's the management of it. So my question becomes: what work can he do? What work can't he do?
Yeah.
While he's not playing competitively, like playing on the court.
Yeah.
Is he allowed to train to an extent? Is he allowed to keep healthy with other areas, or is it a lay off everything for a period? Do you know what I'm like? It's
yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
How do you treat this? Because any kind of like
no, I've got zero insights on that at all.
Yeah, I mean, God, even it doesn't matter what kind of experiences you've had around it. As we've just identified, they're all different treatment pathways, and it can go different. So. The question is, when is he back on the court? It might not affect him long term, but not doing any conditioning for 12 months might actually have a huge impact on him.
So it's going to be less than 12 months because they said he's going to be ready for the start of next season.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are we? We're in February now, so it's 8 months.
Can I be honest with you? I actually don't think that's an issue at all. I think they'll space him out for the right amount of time after his surgery.
I don't think
they'll keep an eye on his bloods.
The Luka weight discussion is going to come into things, but. Do you know
it means the opposite, right? You kind of wish he would put on a bit of weight,
a couple of kilos. But it's the being match fit, it's the conditioning, it's the
sure.
But when do you go? When can you go?
Yeah. No, I feel like that something like that they'll be able to manage pretty good.
It'll be interesting to see.
So I think the first thing we've covered is obviously the conspiracy around the ping pong balls. I don't think we need to go into that, but there is a little bit of other fallout that's going to happen here. So the next one to talk about is Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, that's league wide. That's not just the Spurs organization.
So absolutely. So we can probably thread this into the conversation now. So how that works in terms of league awards, you have to play X amount of games to get that award.
Yep.
He doesn't now qualify for that because he won't be playing for the rest of the season. So initially you would argue that he was an absolute shoo-in to win the award. And if he had played the number of games, I would have absolutely voted for him as Defensive Player of the Year. Like, I actually think it's so hard for me to actually comprehend who is the second best defensive player in the league now. In my head, he's so impactful on the defensive end. Like, as much as Luke can change a game offensively, and same as LeBron and Jokic, I should definitely say that too. That's how I feel about Wemby on the defensive end. He's so intimidating and scary, I think is the best way to say it. So So why don't we talk about that? Why don't we thread that in next? So who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year now
I think
instead?
we've both got a couple of interesting options.
Yep. Who do you think's going to win?
I made a bit of a quip and suggested that Australia's own Dyson Daniels would
Yep.
be thrust into the arena. Look, he hasn't been as he hasn't been the Great Barrier Thief that he was aptly nicknamed earlier in the season as things have progressed. But yeah, definitely a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, I think.
He is absolutely going to be a candidate. So if you look at his steals totals at the moment, like the difference between first and second is 50 steals. And
Yeah,
another way of
he's
saying
a
that is
pest.
he is 50% ahead of the second closest person. So it's
What Wemby is in blocks. Dyson Daniels is in steals.
yeah. So Daniels has got 152 steals. SGA second with 101, and third is Nikola Jokic with 91.
That's hilarious.
Like the difference there.
The fact that Jokic is in the top 3 there is terrifying, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just says so much about how he just reads the game. And
yeah, true.
Yeah. And so there was another statistic floating around that when Chris Paul led the league in steals, he didn't have that many steals at that point in the season. Like that's how far ahead
Wow.
Dyson Daniels is, compared to everyone else. So I think that's a really good one. I think he should be considered absolutely
in the conversation,
top. Then, this is really difficult too. So it's how do you measure? It's so hard to measure people's defensive ratings. You can't just go by blocks. So number 1 in blocks is Wemby at 176. Number 2 is Brook Lopez at 106. I don't think anyone is going to be voting for Brook Lopez as Defensive Player of the Year. Third is Walker Kessler. Then you're going down Daniel Gafford, Anthony Davis. And probably the one that I had off the top of my head was Jaren Jackson Jr. I think defensively, he's really solid, but does he have enough numbers to sort of support that unless people are going to look at those?
But it's team impact,
the
right?
Deep
Like
stats.
There's team defense and
yeah, of course. There's
anchoring a team defense.
There's advanced stats you can look at too. Definitely,
I think you've got a very 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 good point there about Triple J. Like I think Dyson Daniels is a great candidate because he's that far ahead, Wemby level ahead when it comes to steals, which is obviously the other metric. But if you look at how good the Memphis Grizzlies have been this year. And for a team that's sitting so high up, they've gone right under the radar, and he's a definite reason for that.
Yeah, I think the radar thing's an interesting one, just because are they that under the radar, or is it just that they haven't had the same amount of clicks this year because Ja Morant hasn't been there?
Well, Ja has been there. He just hasn't been threatening to shoot people. Wielding guns on IG and all the rest of it. That said, going back, looks like Ja has learned his lesson to that extent.
Yeah.
And as a result, we've got this Memphis team.
I mean, we haven't done a heap of prep on this, so I think this is a pretty superficial conversation. But at the same time, I think your Dyson Daniels call is actually spot on, isn't it? Like, the more I look at this list and then you look at the steals list, like, that is just insane. And now Wemby's out of the conversation. It's like, it makes it really tough not to look at Dyson Daniels straight away, doesn't it? So,
yeah.
Look, not that we advocate for gambling and, have any gambling ties at all, but geez, you have to look at the odds for Dyson Daniels at this point, don't you, for Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, we haven't talked about card values yet, which is very much against the vein of this podcast. So let's just do 1 or 2 minutes on this, then we'll go to an ad, and I think we should come back and talk a little bit more Wemby ad, because I think this is a really big deal, and we should probably break this down as much as we need to.
Yeah, agreed.
Alrighty, he's silver PSA 10.
Yep.
Population on this is 4,294. That is just on PSA. That doesn't include BGS and all the rest of it. It last sold for 728. Now, if you zoom to 1 year, it is down significantly. It's down 67%. So we're already seeing, before all of this happened, we're already seeing a massive downturn. Now, also part of that is it exponentially went down. So at one point, it was trading for 2,400, and then it trended down to about 9,500, and it was pretty steady along that. If you zoom into the last 3 months, actually, It's been very steady, minus 5%. Yes, it's down a little bit, but it was also up in that time period too. Zoom to 2 weeks, this is where it's really interesting. So it's down 13% in the last 2 weeks. But if you zoom in even closer to that, so you look at the last 6 sales,
Yeah.
so it was $849. So that's not that far away from that 950 that we were speaking about not that long ago.
Yeah.
Now, sold for $849, then $817, $800, $765,
Yeah.
$728, and now $700. So that is a very steep downward decline in a very short period of time.
But that's a stabilizing impact, right? Surely it's just about
Yeah.
the card stabilizing and finding its spot.
Let's take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll break this down further.
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty, thank you so much to our sponsor, Fast Break Trading Cards. I think we should also announce at this point in time, Fast Break Trading Cards are coming back on board for another round of sponsorship. So from Adam and I to Alvaro and John, thank you so much for your support,
Really
keeping our lights on, enabling us to do some things in the background that we wouldn't otherwise been able to do for the podcast. It means the world to us. And in addition to that, we're so glad that we are a partner with you, because the way that you run your business, you have your shop, that you do things, it's just the way a hobby shop should be run.
Yeah.
Check the guys out at fastbreaktradingcards.com. From there, you'll be able to see all of the different things they have for sale. Also, Friday 12 till 6, Saturday 9 till 5, Sunday 10 till 4. Visit them at 75 Tulip Street in Cheltenham. Alternatively, call them on 039968 550. That is where you can find them out. Now, let's go to pre-orders. It's always good to look into the future in terms of pre-orders.
Having a Luke Longley into the future.
Absolutely. There's nothing NBA here, but also, too, there's nothing wrong with talking about some different things. And I think a couple of these things, Adam, you're going to be interested in. 2024 Topps Chrome Garbage Pail Kids Volume 7. Value blaster box for $40. The hobby box for $125. Now, this is the one I want to talk to you about. 2025 Topps Finest X-Men 97 hobby box for $350. I actually remember the original ones of these selling in my local card shop. It was actually like a news agents, and they had like a little container sort of like off to the side, which they sold cards in. And the Wolverine with the red background, I still remember that vividly. So I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not the biggest like Topps X-Men fan in the world, but there's also that nostalgia for me, even for me. So I feel like these are going to go absolutely crazy.
The X-Men are huge.
Yeah, I think the last one, just to really quickly talk about here, is the 2023-24 Topps Midnight Basketball Hobby Box. That is $550 on pre-order.
I thought that was a Star Trek product then.
It looks Star Trek-ish, doesn't it? 2 of their pre-orders completely sold out. Magic the Gathering sold out, and also the Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering Commander Deck Display Collector Edition sold out. So congrats, lads, for selling out your allocation on that on pre-order. That is absolutely fantastic. Again, thank you so much to Fast Break Trading Cards for your support. Adam, we're back. How you doing? Part 2.
I'm great. I'm ready to talk some card values and some. Let's deep dive this.
We were breaking down the Wemby PSA Silver 10. We were just saying that the last 6 sales are on a steep downward decline.
Yeah.
And you were saying that it's too soon to talk about it. I would 100% disagree with that. I think these are panic sales. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot of this, man. Because okay, this is how I view this. I put this into the same bucket as Ja Morant. I put this into the same bucket as Zion Williamson. Right?
Okay.
So these aren't particularly people who are PCing them. They aren't people who are collectors per se. They're more the piece of the hobby parcel that I talk about here is, you want to call them flippers. You want to call them people who are in for buying and selling liquid cards. Investors, 100%. And by the way, I'm not saying this to diss on people. It's basically they're all part of the hobby community, the hobby, pool. And they're very important to the pool, by the way, too. You need people buying and selling cards. But I also think, too, the people that do that are also the people to more likely to sell the cards when they do see some bad news coming up, too.
Yeah,
so
true.
That's the way I perceive this card. And I think what we probably could do, too, Ad, is actually just go and have a look at some of the sales of Zion Williamson, because he had those injury reports. He had those times when he went down a lot too. Yeah. And so I think that's a really good one for us just to quickly touch on too.
Yeah, Zion. There's Cade. Cade got injured. they wrapped him
So
up for the year.
yeah, so okay, with the let's do the Zion one first
Yep.
because I think the narrative behind Cade and Zion is actually two completely different stories. So and we
Mm.
can do both. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right.
All right.
Got the prism up. What are we looking at? The silver. Silver
Alrighty.
prism.
So if you go to Zion's all time, obviously he had that insane high of 5,800, and then you can see this incredibly steep downhill all the way down to $900. And so that basically took about 2 years to happen. And then from there, he
Mm.
had a further decline down and he's really flattened out. So he's currently trading at 250.
Yep.
And so, I probably think what we're going to see down, we're going to see a decline here. So it went down to 1,500 and then it went further down again around to 670. So probably where my head is going with this is, okay, so currently we're trading at, well, actually not that far away from 670. Are we already down to 700? Maybe this is going to go down to like 600, even to 550, and then it'll flatten out, and then we'll see what the next pricing is going to go to after that. The really interesting for me thing to think about here is that also the timing of this card too. So it's going to go down as the season progresses. Then we're going to go into the off season, which you often see a further down decline.
But the speculation of him returning.
Yeah, and as it gets closer to the season,
will...
then we start to see the injury reports. Yes, he's coming back. He's training again. Da 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 da. Yes, you'll start to see an uptick then. But I think in terms of timing this card and purchasing it, it would be around the finals. I think that's when you should be starting to look to purchase because that will be like the trough.
Yeah,
and then it'll start to pick back up again. And
end
so
of the season, I think we missed the boat. I think if you wait too long after the announcement that he's resuming training, that's when the uptick's going to happen.
You'll definitely get an uptick there, but at the same time, that wouldn't stress me out a lot though.
Okay.
Like missing out. And the reason I say that is because the period of time to now to when that change will occur, like that's a long time. So, and actually that might be the better time because in terms of you reliably being able to know, okay, great, this guy is coming back.
Yeah.
I feel more confident, putting cash into this guy.
Yeah, true.
That's the way I would sort of look at that too, Ad. So you actually might say that's the best time to purchase. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Very true. I don't know.
So I think if you think about it too, Ad, because like if you look at the all time for Wemby, so what he started off at 2,500. If you can pick that up for 400, 450, 500, 550 USD, like that's kind of exciting too. Like this is probably the way I'm looking at this. My sort of perception of this is we kind of know what's going to happen here. We know that heaps of people have bought these cards. We know that, it's going to go down and people do panic sell. And, what's more important to me is like, is he going to be coming back? And when is the next time to purchase back into him? So why don't we talk about Cade a little bit? Because that was the other one that you
I did. I said Cade was wrapped up in cotton wool early on. So
yeah. So if you look at Cade, and really Cade dropped, I actually think Cade dropped for the wrong reason. So I think
I completely agree.
The speculation around Cade was that he was the number one pick and he was on a terrible team. And I think that's the thing that, did influence him. Yes, he did have an injury, but there was nothing to be said that injury wasn't recoverable and that he was coming back. So there was that window of time when he dropped down. So his silver PSA 10 at one point was selling for $220. Yep. So if you look at his all-time sale, it's basically like it's a U. Yes, it's a small U on the right-hand side. Like it hasn't come up that much, but it's now trading for $426. Yep. So if you pick that up for $220, like that's a pretty gain. Decent uptick.
Yeah, that's a huge gain. Yeah, you're right. And I think this is the glass half full side that we're talking about with if Victor Wembanyama is out for a little bit for the end of this year, they wrap him up in cotton wool. They make sure he rehabs correctly, he does all the medical stuff he's supposed to, and everything is good. He will uptick.
Yeah.
Naturally.
But if we are tying that back to Cade, so actually Cade dropped down to 220.
Yeah.
So I was saying before, like 450, 500 is a good buy. So is there some reality where Wemby goes down to 220?
I don't think there's enough time for that. I honestly don't think the height that Wemby got to versus the area Cade was in.
Yeah.
Probably not as a bigger scale. I also think there's a lot more people with money invested in Victor. Because you look at the pop count on Cade, 322 versus 4,294.
Yeah, okay. So probably my counter argument to that though is the billions of dollars that was lost on Zion,
True.
right?
True.
Because I think
Do people
I
just dump
think
stock now then?
yeah. So like that was the problem with COVID, wasn't it? Is that
Yeah.
people were buying in at astronomical prices into
Because we were never
arguably
going to have cards again. I don't know
that's
why.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And also like buying into people that was it was high risk, but you could also make the argument too that he was the wrong person to buy into. Like I think
Spot on. Yeah, yeah, true.
if we go back and look at that class, actually Ja Morant was probably the better purchase.
Yep, definitely.
And then we were so
Blinded?
blinded. I was trying to think of the right word. I was going to say mystified, but blinded is probably the better word. COVID was just such a horrible time, wasn't it? Like
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It really shook things up in a really negative way. All right.
The dark times.
What else do we need to talk about with Wemby? Actually, there is something else I want to talk to you about with Wemby. So I found this on Twitter at Game Injury Doc. Two NBA players have upper extremity DVTs. Brandon Ingram in 2019 and Azure Thompson. I think I said Eamon before.
Yeah.
They're both returned. This is not the end of Victor, but will need to be on blood thinners for at least 3 months. Okay, there you go. So that's basically a very quick synopsis, isn't it? There's other people who have also had blood clots in the NBA.
Yeah.
Anderson Varejao, Chris Bosh, Jerome Kersey, Mirza Teletovic, who I'd forgotten about that one.
Yep.
Christian Koloko, he was 24 years of age when that happened. Azure Thompson and Wemby. Oh, here you go. Yes, it's true that athletes are at high risk in general for blood clots due to their low resting heart rate, getting dehydrated during a game, and hopping on long flights. That's the one where I'm like, I find that so.
The travel is the concerning bit, right?
Yeah, but this is the bit that I find hard to work out in my head because like these guys are like the healthiest and the fittest players on the planet, yet they're still at risk for this. Like that, I find that so hard to sort of get over. Yeah.
But it's what they do to their body, right? So their dehydration, and if they don't hydrate properly, they put themselves at risk of blood clotting and.
Yeah, that's right. Koloko, Thompson, and Wemby are all post-COVID vaccines, so it's a fair question to ask if that played a role. Wow, that's a Joe Rogan-esque take there.
Oh my goodness, get that conspiracy tinfoil hat out.
I wish I had my tinfoil hat, yeah. I find it concerning that we haven't had an increase in blood clot in young athlete over the past 5 years, and I don't think it's random. Yeah, I have to admit, like, that does seem to me, just seems unusual, doesn't it? But maybe it's also just the amount of, like, flying that these guys do. Like, they do an insane amount of flying.
Being under that compression so regularly. Yeah.
All right. What have we not touched on this, Ad?
I think we've covered. I think the timeline. We've covered Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
The Spurs being in this position the Spurs are in right now.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a deep dive. That is a comp this esque.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot with Wemby, and I mean from my view, I just hope he does recover.
I think for the league's sake, if he doesn't recover, this is going to be an amazing.
Yeah, and we've seen how good he is. Like it's not. Russell, have I lost you? Russell's computer has crashed. So what we'll do is we'll use this opportunity to take a break. Those that are on the live feed. Geez, that's really weird watching me on me if you're on the YouTube live. Russell will be resetting his computer. I don't have the Weekend at Bernie's photo up and available at the moment. So let's see. Let's just see what happens. There he is. He's back.
Hi, mate.
Back.
My computer crashed.
We're still live here on YouTube.
Well, funnily, it actually says it's still recording. I just wonder if we should stop recording.
I'm still in the I'm still in the room on Zencaster, so it would keep going, I reckon.
Well, it says to me that I'm still recording here, but I just feel like we should stop this and start a new recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just told all the listeners we were taking a quick break. So,
I mean, we technically were taking a break.
and now
It's
we're
not.
here. So if you are
It's
on the live
not
watching,
true.
it's gonna cut out and then it's gonna start again, and we're just gonna take it from where we were.
Mm.
All right. So we're gonna jump off Zencaster. We're gonna jump off YouTube, and we'll jump back in a sec. By the way,
Can I
Anthony Milne
pull the
said
audio off? So sorry, after
YouTube.
you. Yep.
Yeah, you should
Yeah.
be able to pull the audio off YouTube.
Yeah, because this is saying that there's a
Corruption.
Oh no, wait, it's uploading now.
It's all good.
Yeah, so maybe
Okay.
we'll be all right. But I just think we should start a new.
Yeah, start a new recording. Start with the ad break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then because we're at 30 minutes now, so it's 29 or something.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Yeah.
So if you start with the, it's only Anthony in the chat watching. It says.
Do you want me to send you a new link? Is that what we'll do?
Yeah, flick me a new link. Let's just start.